Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, my friends. This is Kevin, back again from Personal Tutors. Today, the chapter that we are going to study is known as Quality from 7th Standard Honeycomb book. My friends, this is a story that revolves around the plight of the local boot makers. It is actually about the way they live, the things that happen to them, the type of life they spend, and the conditions, my friends. That's the most important thing. It all starts by the author John Galsworthy. The story revolves around the busy street of London, where a shop without any advertisement, without any notions, known as Gessler Brothers, is situated. This is a shop where Mr. Gessler, an old shoemaker, prepares the best of the handmade shoes. Now, my friends, handmade shoes are quite different than the ones that are manufactured in the companies. Handmade shoes require selected leather. It requires expert skillsmanship. Skillsmanship means an art of doing something perfectly. It requires effort, patience, and precise measurements. It's all about the narrator explaining the way Mr. Gessler makes his shoes, the way he puts in the effort and perfectly carves them out. And really, those shoes last long. By long here, the narrator means really long. It may be a metaphor that since those shoes last long, not many customers turn up to Mr. Gessler in a notion of having perfect pair of shoes that won't be worn out. Or the metaphor here lies Mr. Gessler getting less customers. So it is here that the author actually intensifies or emancipates the appreciation that he owns to Mr. Gessler by making him a person who is so dedicated about his job that he loses no nook and points while making the shoe or doing his work. It is during this tenure the narrator here also gives a glimpse about Mr. Gessler's elder brother, who is the person who helps Mr. Gessler to make shoes. One fine day, the author casually passes by the shop and decides to go in. When he comes to know about the selected pairs and about the death of Mr. Gessler's elder brother. Now that is quite shocking. Mr. Gessler was a person of 60s. The author seems to be overwhelmed by the death and buys a few pair and leaves the city of London for almost a year. Once after the passing of a year, The narrator returns back to London, where incidentally the very thought that comes across his mind is to visit the shop of Gessler Brothers and meeting his old friend Mr. Gessler. Although here the author mentions in the line in the chapter, my friends, he had left Mr. Gessler as a man of 60, but during the tenure means the period, the time duration, my friends. During the tenure, when Mr. Gessler is seen by the narrator, he seems to be a man of 75. Half of his hair have gone. He looks worn out, tired. The inquiry that the narrator made him come to know the plight of the local shoemakers against the upcoming market of the manufacturers, the industrial manufacturers of shoes and brands big. The author here, that is our narrator, he feels a bit saddened by the fact that Mr. Gessler is now a worn out man and is tired and is a bit saddened by the fact that he's been getting less customers year by year. In order to help him out, he gives a big order of numerous pair of shoes to Mr. Gessler so as to help him out and get some shoes that would last really long, very long, my friends. It was almost a Wednesday that he had given the order, and he received those shoes, my friends. Once receiving them, he tried them one by one, everyone to be of perfect size and perfect fit. Overjoyed and happy, the narrator immediately writes a check in the name of Mr. Gessler and posts it himself. A few days later, while passing by the street, he comes across the shop only to find a different name. Flabbergasted. Flabbergasted means amazed, with shock. The narrator runs in to find a different interior and an English-looking man inside Mr. Gessler's shop. Although Mr. Gessler belonged to a different country. He asks the man about Mr. Gessler, whilst the shopkeeper informs him of helping him out about the purpose he's in here. The author, the narrator, sticks to the point of meeting Mr. Gessler when he comes to know that Mr. Gessler is no more. He's dead, he's passed. That really saddens the author. He asks the shopkeeper about the reason, where he came to know that our dear Mr. Gessler was a person who insisted so much on doing his job perfectly that the so-called phenomena of slow starvation by the doctors killed him. He would not finish his job incomplete at any damn cost. That's what he used to do. And the recent order that he got made him work day in, day out, forgetting about the food, the starvation that led to his certain death. The last line of the chapter says, "There's no man in London who can make better shoes than Mr. Gessler," my friends. The story here rhetorically explains the plight of the local shoemakers the generosity, the dedication that they put in their work is not to be compared with certain shoes that are worn out wearing just for 2 or 3 months, not even lasting a year. This rhetorically explains us and leaves us with two phenomenal questions: whether the work given by the narrator had killed him, or the narrator wanted to help him out in his deepened and grieved state. That's left on the speculations. Speculations means understanding. We'll have a look at the question and answers, my friends. Since it was a deep chapter, we will keep a notion of seriosity over here. The first question is, what was the author's opinion about Mr. Gessler as a bootmaker? Well, the author knew that Mr. Gessler was a person who, when got an order for something, would never fail in his job and try to give out the perfect pair of shoes that he has been allotted or ordered or asked to do so. Why did the author visit the shop so infrequently? The only reason that the author visited the shop so infrequently was that the shoes that Mr. Gessler used to wear were actually, that he used to make, were actually so tough and so superior in quality that they wouldn't worn out. They would just last for a long time. They wouldn't just wear out by any circumstances, my friends. Here I would explain you one fact about the chapter, that once the author had won an industrial made shoe and entered the shop just to annoy Mr. Gessler, who was so calm at the moment that he did not bring the annoyance at his face, and he exclaimed, "These are not my boots." That is, that these are not the ones that you always wear, mister. That's what shows the dedication and the knowingness of one's work, my friends. What was the effect on Mr. Gessler of the author's remark about a certain pair of boots? Well, a certain pair of boots that the author had ordered made a creaking noise. Now this creaking noise, when the author informed to Mr. Gessler about, was actually a shock to him. He was kinda amazed and stared at the author as if he had turned or touched a burning ball of steel. Although the narrator felt that he shouldn't have been so straightforward and rigid about the defect, yet Mr. Gessler asked the narrator to send the pair back, and if certainly there's the issue, he would strike the amount from the bills. That is, he would take them off from the bill, that is, return the money or not take any money or give it free of charge. What was Mr. Gessler's complaint against big firms? Mr. Gessler's complaint against the big firms was they did not emphasize on the quality. That is the name of the chapter, my friends. They did not emphasize, the big firms did not emphasize on quality. They emphasized on quantity and manufacturing and selling them in great numbers, rather than building an expert pair of shoes as any good shoemaker would emancipate. Why did the author order so many pairs of boots? Did he really need them? Well, the author did not need so many pairs of boots, but out of the feeling that he carried, the help that he wanted to provide to Mr. Gessler was actually the reason behind ordering so many pairs. Friends, in this chapter, you can see the difference between an old boot maker who makes handmade boots and the big manufacturing firms who make shoes on an assembly line or in a factory. The person here who's making a handmade boot puts in all his effort, chooses the best leather, makes sure that they would last long, not wear out so easily, whereas the companies do not emphasize on the quality, but they emphasize on the quantity, thus giving off the notion of the quality involved. To my left, my friends, you'll find the information link. You click on it, you'll be directed to the playlist of 7th Standard Honeycomb. We will be getting explanations about the other chapters that I have explained to you in my previous sessions. Please subscribe to our channel. If you want to know something about us, please click the button and you'll know about Personal Tutor. To my right here, you'll find the link to the related chapters from the 7th Standard NCERT syllabus, my friends. So thank you once again. Please do comment.